always a good sign when people refuse to listen to you and continue on their conversations. So now is the harvesting. It is, as Toby said, the opportunity to come out of our little groups and hear the collective intelligence, hear what we were all saying in order to get a shared understanding of what was being said in the groups. How we're going to do that, the invitation is for someone to come up to read out their statement. If you could read it out twice, so that we all get to understand it. If you hand it to one of our lovely harvesting team, they will place it on the wall. If you have a similar card or a similar point from your group, stick your hand up and someone else will come and collect it. And what we'll try and do is to create a set of clusters around the main themes that we can hopefully try and pick up and reflect back to you at the end. So the invitation now at this stage is for someone to come up and give us one of your cards.
You can line up.
So if you read it out to the front and read it into the centre, and then someone will take it from you.
Hello everyone. We feel that we need to digitise participation. We need to digitise participation. It doesn't matter quite how that is, but it's going to make it more accessible to everybody and anybody, not just people who have got time to take off work to discuss this in person. I hope that's all right.
Has anyone got anything similar?
Okay, we need more conversations to happen at home, kind of related, and these to be shared more widely, perhaps via social media. So not just in these kind of forums, but at home too.
Did anyone have anything similar to that? This is a good sign.
We need to give local people back the stake they deserve in deciding how the environment they live in is shaped. We felt particularly that planning decisions, bringing authority back to local people is extremely important.
Okay, did everybody get that? Yeah, a couple of similar ones? Great.
What participation and hosting will mean in the area where I'm based, and I travel daily by public transport, and it's really good, is young crofters voicing their futures. I'll repeat. Young crofters voicing their futures.
Did anyone have anything similar to that?
Yes, we had a fairly lively discussion about how this might be quite useful for the role that politicians currently have, and whether there's scope for politicians moving towards more of a hosting role, which may well address some of the issues that we have around participative democracy. So that was one.
Anything similar to that? The role of politicians, the hosting role?
And then the second one that we had a discussion on was how the referendum, and I think it echoes one of the speakers, that this is part of the process. So whatever happens in the referendum in September, this is only the beginning of a vision of what Scotland might wish to see, and so therefore there's scope for many more conversations.
And something that we came up with was equality of relationships. And the example that I used was a music teacher told me that if I didn't attend her band, that she wouldn't be able to give me music lessons anymore. Yet she's employed by the instrumental service to give me lessons. And I suppose the thing that really got me was that we're both there for the common purpose for her to teach me how to play an instrument. And I just thought that if there was an equality of relationship and she didn't think that she somehow had power over me because she was a teacher, that we'd be able to sort of break down barriers and come to a common resolution.
And
Another one of the points that our group came to discuss was the way people are starting to interact with various campaigns for the independence referendum, and how this should maybe start to set a precedent for the way we communicate through groups in future. So we said to create a space for respectful dialogue to give each citizen an equal platform.
Anyone anything similar?
There was reference at the beginning to the work that's going on in schools, which is my milieu. So we've got the point that it's important to link with the work that's going on in schools. And actually young people are doing a lot of this sort of thing. With a two-way process, one to help them develop their ideals, their values and purposes, and perhaps more importantly, learn from them.
So anything? Yeah, excellent. Thank you.
I suppose we had quite a generic point, but I think it's probably worth making that the art of hosting is about enabling people to participate. It's going from a customer to citizen. Common theme there.
Got any matches? Citizen, yeah. Okay, same thing.
We discussed leadership, and I suppose this one is aimed at leaders across the entire spectrum, no matter where you are, but hosting can enable leaders to understand that sharing power doesn't mean they will lose it.
Yeah.
We talked about really large organisations, and often it's maybe 8 people that make the decisions for those really large organisations. So we thought enriching and sparking ideas from collective thoughts, not just from a small group of the same people.
Anything similar to that? Yeah, thank you. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, this follows similar to the citizen one, I think, but it's a bit different. There's two that are related. People talk more so they feel heard, so maybe it'll encourage them to do something about it. And that leads on to accelerating the process of achieving change. So again, people talk more so feel more heard, so maybe they'll do something about it. And then accelerate the process of achieving change for this.
Is that ringing with anybody else?
Okay, we had one on build up to the referendum, which is already up there, but we had a discussion around the importance of using participation and listening to heal the political divide post the referendum. And there's going to be a huge amount of the population that's going to be disappointed one way or another, and participation will be a way to ensure that any bad feeling isn't carried over for the months and years following the referendum.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Cool. Okay.
Okay, so I've got two sort of quick ones. The first thing we were talking about was whether discussing in itself was something that we need to sort of be doing more of, without it even necessarily being listened to, and getting that as a starting point.
Thank you.
And the second thing is also making aware people what exactly this is. We've been talking quite a lot tonight about this, and without a lot of explanation of perhaps what this actually is. So maybe explaining a little bit more to the people who are meant to be participating in this, what exactly this is.
Yeah, we were talking about what this is as well, but rather than trying to, Toka said something earlier about we're not selling you anything, and it seemed to me that we shouldn't be explaining anything either, but rather maybe demonstrating what this might actually look like, and that would make a difference to Scotland. One of the group had organised what they called flip conferences, where they invited a keynote listener rather than a keynote speaker. The person was not allowed to speak for the whole morning, but to listen to membership, and then was invited to represent at lunchtime. And that would be what we call demonstration before explanation. And maybe we need to engage more together in showing what we're doing. Whether it succeeds or not is nearly not important. In fact, it's probably important that it doesn't succeed every time, so that rather than have a sharing of best practice, you actually maybe have the confidence to share worst practice and learn together from that, rather than copy somebody else's very good work. Anyway, demonstration before explanation, flip conference was an example.
Okay, anyone similar?
We also were talking about this, and the comment was made in my group that it would have been very nice to have known what the question was in advance.
Thank you. A challenge. Anyone anything similar?
In our conversation, we said about that, maybe I'm making a presumption, but let me throw it out. This is probably a fairly middle-class group of people. We're the disadvantaged amongst us in the conversation. So our focus, and Jim, I must have, admired your contribution. He wasn't prepared to come up and say it, so he pushed me forward. But no one to be excluded from, say, the training in the work of art of hosting on the grounds of income as one way. And then a related one is about how can we begin to move towards a simplified tax or welfare, or rather more of a citizen's income in Scotland, so that people don't feel as excluded. So a bit more beyond, but I think they're linked.
Thank you. Did they come up for anybody else?
We talked, in two different conversations, one of which was about community and how you could bring the art of hosting more into the community. But one of the areas of concern was how you make space, both head and physical space, to sort of break the chains of traditional thought within a meeting, where you have somebody who's talking at the whole time. So it's sort of breaking the chains of traditional meeting format and creating an environment of trust where people feel comfortable to be able to come forward with their views, which I think rarely happens. I think there's usually a head agent who's controlling things, and it's trying to find that place and space to move away from that.
Yeah, got to get back. Thank you.
Part of what we're here to do today is to develop the art of listening. And I think part of what we demonstrated in our group is that we were perhaps not listening hard enough to the directions for the exercise. So we don't have a single statement, but a number of elements which I think perhaps summarise many of the ones that have already been put up there. But in answer to the question over there in brief, remove or break down the hierarchy. Have the courage to do things differently. Enable all to be present. Those in authority need to earn the authority. Change the vocabulary. Create a new culture.
Thank you. You've done the headlines work for a lot of this stuff, so that's really helpful.
I'm not sure that we answered the question very well either, but we did feel strongly that for authentic, sustainable conversations or hosting to take place, we should always ensure that the behaviour, or our behaviour, matches our values and our rhetoric.
Thank you. Someone told me, was kind of pecking me for how to introduce this. It was like, make sure that you encourage people to bring a diversity of views. I obviously didn't do that, but it was very, very reassuring to see the range of views coming forward on that. Do we have time for a wee bit more?
We have somebody in our group who works with a union to help to improve people's human rights and just to make them aware of their own human rights. And what she was saying that the participation in her group that she works with is about an approach that models human rights principles in action. respect and how they work with each other. And this gives an experience of your human rights being valued in their participation.
Did that come up for anyone else?
Confusing the whole issue.
Okay, so I think we're going to close that off here, and here the headlines, here what the main kind of themes and clusters were that came through. What's the summary of all the conversations that were going on in this room? And Carol is going to take the easy task of taking us through this. It's the okay.
Version 1.0.
Yeah. Version -5. But the themes coming through, we'll polish them. But it sounds like we need an inclusive space. Young people, crofters, poor people, and I'll throw my one in, people with disability, need to be included in the conversation. It doesn't belong to one group, or we're just kidding ourselves about participation. That came through?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, got that one. And holding space for those conversations, from the family to the schoolroom to the politicians, but having a space that people can come to and be comfortable in that. So it's holding that space. And it came up, and in the digital world.
Yes.
One came up, the first one was about digitising, and also there's another one about social media. So there's a space there that needs to be held by the youngs, I think. Yep, so that came up. There's a key question mark, confusion. What is it? What is it? So a little bit of opportunity people want for education about what it is, and the counter to that was don't speak it as educators, let us experience it. So what is it has to be felt, has to be done.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But maybe I would just add at this moment, now you have been here, some of you are already practicing this for some, and maybe the first time. We're very happy to send out a few descriptions, but I think with this consciousness that was already shared, if you try to convince yourself or other people about the theory of it, you may get stuck there. But we do have some description that we're happy to share, and I think something really beautiful came out of the new battle training, a one-page even describing some of the projects that was born there. If you want to be having sent that, just make sure that the team here has your email and you can have it in that way. Be careful with description. Practice is, you could say, the juice is in the practice.